Well, hello and welcome to the stream. Let's go ahead and see what we can get into. We're going to do a little bit of this art bell, and this is Coast AM with special guest George Knapp and friends. And we're going to do the Skinwalker Ranch and Area 51.
It's time to do good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be in the world's time zones, all of them covered amply by this program, Coast to Coast AM. I'm Art Bell. It is my honor and privilege to be escorting you through the second half of the weekend. And what a program it is going to be tonight. Ge0rge, the NIDS, connected to Robert Bigelow, is going to be here this evening, along with, now I'm going to start fighting back on this legendary stuff, the legendary Ge0rge Knapp, CBS affiliate reporter in Las Vegas, the legendary Ge0rge Knapp. He was reporting on Area 51. Well, actually, when we get him on the air, we'll figure that out, how many years ago this has been going on. But, it began with Bob Lazar and John Lear, and it was just incredible. Anyway, the legendary Ge0rge Knapp will be here tonight. That'd be a lot of fun. Been a while since I talked to Ge0rge. Listen, we're right in the middle of a free Streamlink weekend. Now, what that means is exactly what it says. Streamlink is the streaming of this broadcast. You can get it for free till 6:00 in the morning, I believe. Now, along with that, you can get classic shows. You can download shows. I mean, there's all kinds of things that Streamlink allows you. So go take a sample. It's free. Run up to coasttocoastam.com. Sign up. It's free. Run up to coasttocoastam.com. Maybe they'll send you a follow-up. You want to join or something like that. Otherwise, it's without obligation. So if you don't want it, delete it, forget it. But Streamlink is way cool and totally worth it. So go to coasttocoastam.com right this minute. It's free. Now, the webcam photograph, which also is at coasttocoastam.com right now, is also, it involves, in a peripheral way, the trip we took to Bigelow Aerospace. And that's a picture of Erin, my beautiful, quite pregnant wife, in front of the helicopter while we were in Las Vegas. Now, the really prime photographs, I'm saving because mid-March we're going to have Bob Bigelow on, and we're going to have just one hell of a show. You're going to see what Bigelow Aerospace is all about. We'll post high-def photos for you, and we're going to talk about where Bigelow Aerospace is going, that the U.S. government won't be going. All very interesting. Mid-March, talk about a million things privately with Bob, most of which we can discuss on the air. All right, looking at the generally depressing world news, not to let us down tonight, Defense Chief rebukes Putin's tough talk. Pentagon Chief Robert Gates responded Sunday to Vladimir Putin's assault on U.S. foreign policy. He didn't like it, saying, we're causing wars and stuff, by saying one Cold War is enough, and that he would go to Moscow to try to reduce tensions. Gates also sought more allied help in Afghanistan. He delivered his first speech as Pentagon chief at a security conference in Germany, then flew to Pakistan to discuss fears of a renewed spring offensive by Taliban fighters in neighboring Afghanistan. He arrived in Pakistan's capital, Islamabad, Monday morning. So we really don't need a new Cold War with Moscow, that's for sure. This village in upstate New York's snowbelt gets a lot of snow, typically during the winter. But last week, it was the jackpot. More than 11 feet of snow. 11 feet unofficially. Might be an all-time record, actually. Before it began to wind down Sunday, persistent streams of squalls fueled by moisture from Lake Ontario during the last week consistently dumped lake-effect snow on this western New York region again and again and again, as if the Lord were trying to bury it. U.S. military officials on Sunday accused the highest levels of the Iranian leadership of arming Shiite militants in Iraq with sophisticated armor-piercing roadside bombs that have now killed more than 170 troops from the American-led coalition. Now, I'll tell you what, when you begin hearing stories like this, you can begin to imagine a conflict with Iran. I think unless something changes, perhaps in the same way that we began to trespass in Cambodia and Laos, I think that we're going to get involved in Iran. I'm sure that unofficially we are already there. Pretty sure of that, actually. Whether or not we're going to get officially there, I think, is beginning to get in less and less doubt. Democratic presidential candidate Barack Obama said Sunday he does not think that voters have a litmus test on religion, whether evangelical Christianity or his childhood years in a largely Muslim country. If your name is Barack, you can expect it, some of that. I think the majority of voters know that I'm a member of the United Church of Christ and that I take my faith seriously. Harvard University on Sunday named historian Drew Gilpin-Faust as its first female president. Well, there's some glass shattering, huh? Ending a lengthy and secretive search to find a successor to Lawrence Summers and his tumultuous 5-year tenure. So a woman. How about that? High-risk pregnancies are on the rise here in the U.S., and they may be more common than now, actually, than at any other time since modern obstetric care became available. Why? Because more and more 40-something moms are deciding to have babies. Epidemics of diabetes, obesity, and high blood pressure are causing pregnancy and birth complications. Here's an interesting little note from a listener. The weather here in the eastern Lake Ontario region has gone absolutely mad since Sunday evening. My hometown of Mexico, New York, has about 72 inches of snow. Now, that, of course, is much more by now. At times during the heaviest activity, the snow's been coming down at rates as high as 6 to 7 inches per hour. Can you imagine that? 6 to 7 inches an hour. All right, listen, I've got some more things that I want to read here to you, but I'm doing unscreened open lines. Now, unscreened means exactly what it says. In other words, I am not going to have anybody pick up a line and find out who you are, where you are, and what you want to talk about. We're just going to do it cold. So, in a moment, I'll give you the numbers, and we'll proceed. Now, I'm depending on you, before you pick up the phone, to dial that you have something good to say, meaning interesting. If not, your tenure will be short, indeed. In addition, you must promise to turn your radio down right away. The moment you hear me say, hi, you're on the air, that has meaning. And it means you should turn your radio down right away. So that's coming up in just a very few moments. Let's break right here, and I'll be right back with more. Good Lord, every line is ringing. You apparently already know the numbers. In a moment, not enough sunlight exposure in pregnant women can lead to their children developing schizophrenia. Wow, vitamin D, the sunshine vitamin, has also been shown to help prevent breast cancer, which would explain why there is more breast cancer among women who work the night shift. This would also explain why certain cancers have become more common today when a greater number of people stay indoors all day. Now, that would certainly apply to me, all but the breast cancer, I suppose. I get very little sun. I went out today and got, well, they recommend here that everybody get 10 to 15 minutes of sun a day. Now, obviously, too much is not good. We all know what that does. But at least 10 to 15 minutes of sun. And here, listen to this. About 1 in every 150 American children has autism. Now, we covered this before, but it's so damn alarming. 1 in 150. Now, this This is up from about 1 in, I don't know, 2,500, 5,000. It's just a giant jump. And why there's so much autism, I have no idea. They don't either, meaning the scientists. The largest U.S. study of childhood autism to date has found that 1 in 150 have the disorder, a higher prevalence than previously thought and seen in any national estimate. The highest rate found in northern New Jersey. The autism rate was about 6.6 per 1,000 in the new study based on data from 2002. It was released Thursday by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Last year, the agency had estimated the rate was about 5.5 in 1,000. That's just awful. And this is a follow-up to last night, very briefly. Over about 3 decades now, a small lab at Princeton University managed to embarrass university administrators, outrage Nobel Prize laureates, entice the support of philanthropists, and make headlines around the world with its efforts to prove that thoughts can alter the course of events. But sadly, at the end of the month, the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab, or PEAR, is going to close its doors, not because of any controversy, but because its founder says it's time. The lab has conducted studies on extrasensory perception, telekinesis, and so forth from its cramped quarters in the basement of the university's engineering building since 1979. Its equipment is aging, finances dwindling for 28 years. We've done what we wanted to do, and there's no reason to stay and generate more of the same data. That's a quote from the lab's founder. Now 76 years of age, Robert John, former dean of Princeton's engineering school and an emeritus professor, says, quote, "If people don't believe us after all the results we've produced, they never will." Princeton made no comment whatsoever. I would like to thank the professor and all those who worked at Princeton for the fine work they did, and I agree with the professor. If they do not believe by now, if they don't look at the results and decide there is something that science might not know, then they're never going to know. No matter how hard SETI's tried to detect ET radio signals, very few have been picked up, none is to explore a region of space containing 40,000 stars. When he increased the theoretical search to include 260,000 solar systems in our galaxy's habitable zone, he calculated that they'd take about 10 billion years, that's 10 billion years, to explore just 0.4% of these stars. That is 3/4 of the age of the universe. In other words, we simply don't have enough time to make a thorough search. So in the meantime, we simply have to hope that they will find us first. Or, if you are of faith, you know they have already found us. And I've got stories on major UFO sightings in the United Kingdom. Actually, we're in an interesting time right now. We're having what I would certainly call, many others call, a UFO flap. All right, here we go. Unscreened open lines means you've got to have something of interest to say. You've got to get right to the point. You've got to turn your radio down when you get through. West of the Rockies, 800-618-8255. East of the Rockies, 800-825-5033. First-time callers, we love you. Area code 818-501-4721. Wild card line people, 818-501-4109. And if you're out of the country, you get hold of the operator anyway. You dial 800-893-0903. That said, west of the Rockies, you are on the air. Welcome.
Yeah, hi. Have a great evening. I got a Big Brother story and something about 2012 if you're interested.
A Big Brother? Well, sure.
Well, a few years back, around 75 or so, I was listening to the radio and scanning at nighttime up and down the FM dial, and right near the top of the FM dial, I came across the Morse code. And I copied it down, and I verified it over several nights. And I went to the library and I checked it out, and it's spelled Titan 8.
Say it again?
It's spelled Titan 8.
Titan 8, really?
Which is an 8 warhead Titan missile, ICBM. And when they have trouble, or if there's a problem with the system, it sends out a radio alert, and they're supposed to pick it up and go fix it.
Once I figured that out, it would have scared the hell out of me.
Well, it did, and I kept listening to it for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it turned into months, and I never said anything to anybody about it. Until one day I was in a coffee shop in New Westminster, BC, and I just happened to mention it to some friends of mine over coffee. That night, it was off the air.
I sure as hell wouldn't want to hear a Titan 8 screaming for help over a period of days, much less weeks and months. Titan 8, help. I'm in trouble. I'm a missile, and I'm in trouble. You just wouldn't think it would go on that long, would you? And I wonder why it would broadcast near the top of the FM dial. Now, clearly, most FM dials, both at the bottom and top of the band, go a little past the official broadcast band. So that could be how he heard it, but that's still, that's kind of freaky. Wildcard line, you are on the air. Welcome.
Hi, Art. This is Joe in Santa Rosa.
Hey, Joe.
I had a question about a show you had about 10 years ago with an Area 51 call-in list.
Okay, you can try. I mean, 10 years is a long time, buddy.
I heard a clip on the internet not too long ago where a caller called in claiming he worked at Area 51.
Yes.
And after a short while on the phone, all your transmissions went dead.
Of course. Now, fortunately, of course, I remember, it's the infamous Area 51 call, so I remember it very well indeed. What is your question?
I was just wondering, I hadn't heard anything else, and I was wondering if you figured out what had happened.
No, of course not. Well,
no?
We figured out a couple of things. For one, according to the company that was maintaining the satellite that went bonkers, the satellite at that very instant began to tumble in space. Now, when that occurs, of course, you lose lock. In other words, maybe you're off the air. When the antenna begins to turn, you're suddenly just off the air. Now, it was at the very least, highly coincidental that right in the middle of that fellow screaming bloody murder about Area 51, that a satellite just, satellites just rarely tumble in space, but it chose that exact second to do it, and that's no lie.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, at least interesting. Very, very interesting indeed. All right, wildcard line, you're on the air. Hello. No, I guess you're not. That's just noise. Let's try it again. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hello, turn off your radio, please.
Yes, the one is my census, and I have a question about Mel's Hole.
Mel's Hole, okay.
Yeah, but I have to find out, first of all, if you could replay that sound effect that you had for a while back and scared the hell out of everybody. We had to hear it again. Second of all, I told him I was planning on taking a trip all the way up there in the next couple of weeks. And we were going to try to do some hiking in that area to find out exactly where this place is at. And the theory that a friend of mine came up with was that there's something that's supposed to be so deep. How does it transform? How does it become so deep? That's one of the things that he had a question for.
All right. Nobody knows why it's so deep. Now, if you're really going to go up there, here's what I recommend. Go back to the show about Mel's Hole, either the first or the second program, and somewhere in there, they actually do give the location because several people located it on Google Earth. And for a while, it was blocked out. Interestingly, it was blocked out, but they've removed, for whatever reason, that block. Probably because we called attention to it here on the air. And that'll help you locate the where. When you get there, I want a report from you. Now, you're on a terrible cell phone right now, so your audio is just terrible. But I want you to get back to me. Anybody who goes to investigate Mel's Hole, assuming that you located it, and it has been seen from Google Earth. I want to know. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you what the fascination for me, and obviously so many others, is about holes in the ground. But if anybody knows of any other hole, some virtually endless hole in the ground, oh boy, do I ever want to know about it. Would I take a trip and actually investigate? I probably would. Holes in the ground. Why? That's a question all by itself. Why are they so interesting? I'm Art Bell. Oh, baby, it's a ride, all right. Jeremy in Rochester, New York, sent me a fast blast, something you too can do at coasttocoastam.com. He asks, I was wondering what got you started with Coast to Coast, and the answer to that is easy, Jeremy. I did a political talk show. I can do politics as well as the next for years and years. And one night, I got bored. I was bored to death, Jeremy. And I said, there's got to be more to life than politics. Night after night after night, I used to do the show from 1 to 6 in the morning, 5 nights, no, make that 6 nights a week. And so one day I said, no more. And I started, I think the first interview might have been with John Lear. We talked UFOs. Oh, I'll tell you what, the people who owned that radio station had a, one of those fits. And everybody else connected to the program had a fit. And then when they figured out that so many people apparently were just like me and bored to death with politics, and the ratings came in, well, then they all smile. Nothing, succeeds like success. So, Jeremy, that's how it happened. We'll be right back. It is indeed a cruel, harsh world. Now, with unscreened open lines, just let them ring. Let it ring until it's answered, and then immediately turn your radio down. Cruel, what do I mean by cruel, hard world? Well, the more interesting your call, the more time you're likely to get on the air. That's cruel and hard, right? Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hello.
Art, how are you?
Yes.
Joe in LA. I have a question. I've been with you guys now 3 months. I'm a relatively new listener. And if you will please inform me, what is the Kingdom of Nye is my question, and I'll take your answer off the air. Thanks, Art.
All right, here it comes. It is Nye County. N-Y-E, Nye County. We're like the second or third largest county in the whole country. So that's where it comes from. There's a place up the street called the Kingdom, and a fellow who ran a newspaper here and he had a column called the Kingdom of Nye. And very early on, I called him up. I said, hey, can I steal that and use it on the air? He said, sure. So that's where the Kingdom of Nye comes from, as well as where I come from. Nye County, Nevada. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Yeah, Art.
Yes.
Yeah, Adam, Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Yo, Adam.
Listen, the whole contrails experience, you remember those, right?
Of course.
So how do we know that linked somehow to all the autistic children that are being born nowadays?
It's entirely possible.
You
We don't know what's causing all this autism and a lot of other difficulties that are mounting up health-wise for Americans and worldwide, for that matter. So, actually, those who hated them and watched them called them chemtrails.
I'm kind of looking at it as an experiment by our government to create a super knowledgeable species, which has got that.
Well, it could be that, or it could be any number of other things. But I have very few doubts that experiments on Americans, I mean, there is a long history, and you can look it up on the web if you like. People would be, I certainly was astounded several years ago. Somebody recited to me the number of times that the American government has experimented on its own people. And I, frankly, at first did not believe it. I really didn't believe it. But there it was. And there is a law, and I can't recall specifically right now which one it is, but there really is a law that allows this to go on. And is it still going on? I'd take bets on it. Well, let's see where to go. First time caller line, you are on the air.
Hi, Art.
Hi. Yes.
How are you?
Very well.
Okay, I'm calling First of all, I wanted to say how great it is that you share all these stories of Aaron and the kitties. A friend of mine, Selma Lee, we both love hearing these things. My story is about a wild animal. And approximately 10 years ago, my late husband, my cousin, and I went up to the Catoctin Mountain Zoo over near Camp David.
Right.
And I had heard that this man and wife come up there. They have lions. So they come up there on the weekends and everything. So when I saw the car near where the cages were, I thought, well, they're there, and they were. And we're standing there leaning on the railing. And so it was not a moat, but it was ground between the railing we were on and the cage. And then all of a sudden, a lion comes from around the corner. And I'm looking at him, he's looking at me, and I went, hello? I didn't know what else to do. And, yeah, right? And, he was looking at me, and then all...
Was he looking at you like me?
Sort of, yeah, I would say. But the whole thing was, when the man came, the guard, he came over and he said, you all have to leave right now. He said he doesn't know he's out of the cage. And when he realizes it, something could happen. Then I heard my husband was still leaning on the rail because he didn't hear what the guy had to say. I had to go grab him. And we were heading over to where this water was. It was really yucky looking water. And one of the guards came on the walkie-talkie, and I heard him say, if you have to, jump in the water. Well, we just kept on walking, and it was so exciting, and nobody knew an hour later how that lion had gotten out.
Well, these things happen, and generally, I think good advice is don't run. Now, cats, little cats and big cats, react to, I guess automatically, to something running, prey. So I think the usual advice is stay very still, and if you're going to move very, very slowly. I remember we made a trip to Africa. Ramona and I went to Africa, and we were in a Jeep, and we were not more than 5 or 6 feet away. The real good time to be by lions is the middle of the day, when they're out sunning themselves. They're very unlikely to be active and jumping on you. But the tour guide that we were with said that he had been attacked many times. And as you hear that recited and you're looking right into a lion's, they're big. They're really big cats. And if you have cats and you know what they do and you can sort of project that behavior onto a big cat and imagine what it would be like. Just move very slowly. Hi there, west of the Rockies, you are on the air.
Why, thank you, Art Bell. How you doing today?
I'm well, sir.
I tell you what, there's a couple different things. When you're in the Philippines, when you get back there, you need that moniker, that when you're in Nevada, the Kingdom of Nye. There, how about this one? From the 19th floor of the tropical rainforest.
I'm not in a tropical rainforest. I'm right in the middle of Manila. Manila is sort of a rainforest of high-rise buildings. It is a very, very large city. Now, somebody can look it up for me, and I'm sure tell me how large compared to some other cities in the world. But I can assure you, Manila is a gigantic city. It was a serious experience. I still own the condominium there, and after we have our baby girl, Asia, we, of course, will make a trip back and utilize the condo for a while and show off the baby to the family, that kind of thing. So it will probably come and go a little bit when it comes to the Philippines. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hello, Art Bell. Yes, it's Kathy from Woodbridge. I haven't called you in
Oh,
years.
my God. Kathy,
yeah,
how you doing?
Still alive. I'm okay, Art. You and I get along about 99% of the time, but on one of the worst things that happened in this country. It's changed it. It's made it the most important topic to talk about almost 24/7. Even though you don't like politics, Art, politics is what has made this world a dangerous place. And 9/11 is all politics. And even though you don't want to talk about it, your show actually does pertain to politics even today.
Kathy, I'll talk about it. I have no problem talking about it.
You said
what you really mean is we don't agree.
Yeah, well, I think at certain times we do. You know, there's something is fishy about this whole situation, about this war, and how we got into it.
Yeah,
No real reason why we might have got into it.
There's a lot fishy about it.
Okay. Now, there's a story. I don't even know if you posted it or Lex posted it or Ge0rge, but it's an old story from Alex Jones' website about bombs going off in building number 7.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've read it, but it is an old story. And firemen don't lie. And a lot of firemen were told to leave and not come back to that building when they started asking questions.
I read the story, Kathy.
Yeah.
And I read it.
I know.
And he thought he heard bombs going off in building 7. And now, that's very different than having seen them or something like that.
From people having tapes of those first hours and days, how the news changed, how the news came out, and how it was hushed about the pancake explosion, and how fast they got rid of all that steel, and how it went to Asia, and how it was used very quickly for stainless steel things. How pieces of people's bodies went over to the island across the Staten Island, and now finding pieces of it and going into forensics. Now, Art, something is very wrong, and you say that our government would not be behind 3,000 people. Art, for crying out loud, it's not our government anymore.
Okay, all right, Kathy, we'll hold it there. Look, we're going to have to agree to disagree because you're right. I don't believe it. I do not believe that our government had any part of 9/11, and that means even any peripheral part. I don't for one second believe that, and if I did, Kathy, I'd go back to Manila and I'd stay there. No, I don't believe that. And so, I'm sorry, Kathy, we just don't share views on that subject. I know the line that Alex Jones and others take, but whatever our government does that's wrong, and our government does do things that are wrong, improper, it didn't do that. And as I say, if I really honestly believe that, Kathy, I wouldn't be here. I would not live in a country that would do that to its own citizens. And if you believe that, Kathy, I've got to wonder why you're still here. Airplane fares are quite reasonable right now. There are other countries and other places you can go. And I'm quite serious when I tell you what I'm telling you. If I honestly believe that we had any part in 9/11, and again, let me stress, even a peripheral part, I'd be so gone, Kathy. International line, you are on the air. Hello.
Wow, I'm on the line. I'm on the air?
You're on the air.
I'm Bill. William T-Feather here, friend of Danny Brinkley.
Okay, well, we don't allow last names on the air, buddy. So let's start again with just your first name.
William.
Okay, William, welcome.
Thank you. Hey, I've been listening to you since you were in the garage and first started. I'm a loyal listener. What I want to talk about here is a Native American view on what's happening with oil.
Okay. What is oil? What is it?
The oil is the blood of Mother Earth. And as you take the oil out of Mother Earth, it's the same as taking blood out of a human being. It's also, I'd like to offer a solution to world peace coming from the Native American perspective or the teachings of the peace fighting.
Okay, and that solution would be?
That we take all the war policy makers and give them another job and replace them with grandmothers.
Okay. I suppose. I wonder if there ever will be world peace. The only ones who really utter that are beauty contestants, aren't? I don't think we're ever going to have world peace. I don't think that human beings, at least at our stage of development, unless there's some sort of great mind expanding change some gigantic thing that descends on all of us like the hand of God. Let's face it, we are warrior-like people. And I mean that of the U.S. population as well. We are warrior-like people. That's all there is to it. And the United States, probably a little more warlike than many others right now. A wildcard line, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, this is Bob from Rio.
Yo.
I have just a question I wanted to ask about one of your favorite topics, time travel.
Okay.
Okay, when I was a kid, I had a dream, and I never knew how the dream ended. But the premise of the dream was that I sent out a message, and I said, if time travel was ever invented, please beam your time travel machine into my room on this specific date, and then I can get with the time traveler and travel wherever I want to go. And again, my challenge or my question to you would be, would you ever want to, through the airwaves and so forth, put a challenge forth to say, have a time traveler come visit you at a certain time, and then...
What an interesting question, yes.
So I'm wondering if that would be something that you would be interested in doing.
You know, the first question I would have before time traveling now would be, can I come back? How about you?
Yeah, I would want to come back. There's no place like home, as they say.
You know, maybe it's a one-way trip, and if it was a one-way trip, I guess I've reached a part of my life where, you know, with a child coming, I definitely want to be back. So that would be important. Otherwise, you have kind of a cool idea. Sure, let me do that. If there is a time traveler out there, and you're able to appear and perhaps give me some of the hints and kinks of time travel, if not offering me a ride, as it were. Let's pick a date. How about June 17th of this year? That'd be my birthday. It's an eye condition.
Yes, and it's something that I've just thought was possibly why some people are able to see things like ghosts and UFOs. Because what it is it's something that, with like an average person when they're watching, it was explained to me that when you're watching a parade go by, your eye has a regular rhythm. You watch like a band, and the first group of people go by, everyone's looking at the first row, and then they have a normal rhythm where they look at the next row, and the next row, and the next row. Well, people with a condition called cicada, or other people can get this occasionally, and their eyes will just take it on. Their eyes flash all around and they see everything, including the size, everything at once. And I think that's how they're able to see things, like cats. You know how a cat will look at something and it's like they see a ghost or something?
Oh, all the time. Cats either see something that we do not, or they make things up in their little cat brains. I'm not sure which it is, but I have watched cats for a very, very long time. As you know, I'm very, very much a cat person. We have 3. And by the way, they're all doing well. All the little fur bearers are well, including Dolly, who got rather sick. And she's very much on the mend and adding pounds. And she curls up to me and sleeps with me every single night now. So the little immigrant Dolly that we found on a vanilla street is now flourishing in the U.S. There you have it. All right. Listen, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Colin Ge0rge is going to be here, followed by the legend Ge0rge Knapp in the following hour. So it's going to be one whale of a night, and we're going to be talking about the ranch and more from the high desert and the great American Southwest. I'm Art Bell. Here I am indeed. Steve in Portland, Oregon brings up something that Kathy said, or a follow-up to it, really. He says, Art, if 9/11 was truly an inside job, real patriots wouldn't leave their country. They'd stay and bring the criminals to justice. Steve, here's what I'd say. If 9/11 was an inside job, it'd be so far gone, baby, that you wouldn't bring anybody to justice, and more than likely you'd end up dead. Now, that said, Kathy brings up a very good point. I'm not afraid to talk about anything. And based on that and her challenge, we'll pick a night and we'll talk about 9/11. Now, I don't need anybody from either side, experts, to be part of that. I just kind of like to sample the public opinion out there, and real on-screen open lines are the way to go. Because, well, you just get an absolutely fair sample that way. So I'll just pick a night, Kathy, if you're listening, and we'll rock and roll with that a bit. All right, listen. Coming up now, this hour, Ge0rge. He's a PhD, postdoc Ge0rge, really. He is a research scientist and author currently in the biotechnology sector. Dr. Ge0rge is a biochemist with a 20-year research career in cell and molecular biology. Following his PhD in biochemistry from the University of Dublin, Trinity College in 1983, Dr. Ge0rge worked at the Ontario Cancer Institute, the Terry Fox Cancer Research Laboratory, and the National Jewish Center for Immunology and Respiratory Medicine. Before moving to the biotechnology sector as a senior research scientist, Dr. Ge0rge worked as project manager and team leader at a private research institute from 1996 through 2004, using forensic science methodology to unravel scientific anomalies. So, in a moment, Ge0rge. Also with us this hour is the legendary Ge0rge Knapp, who's an 8-time Emmy Award-winning journalist whose reporting on Nevada's infamous Area 51 military base was selected by UPI, United Press International, as Best Individual Achievement by a Reporter in 1989. Other awards include the Associated Press's Mark Twain Award for news writing and the Edward R. Murrow Award for investigative reporting. Ge0rge is an anchor and reporter just over the hill for the CBS affiliate KLAS-TV, and he also writes a weekly column for a Las Vegas newspaper. So, Ge0rge Knapp and Ge0rge, welcome to the program.
Hey, Art, how you doing?
Ah, both at the same time. Ge0rge, quickly for you, I billed you as the legendary Ge0rge Knapp because people have been doing that to me, calling me legendary, and it feels so, I don't know.
It makes me feel old. I think
that's what it does.
I'd rather be nefarious than legendary.
Well, for some, I'm sure you are nefarious. It's great. How long, Ge0rge, since we have spoken?
Gosh, a couple of years, 4 or 5 years.
At least. Yeah, at least.
Welcome back to this neck of the woods, Art.
It's great to be here. And Colin, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Art. It's good to be with you again.
Okay, so I guess the way it's arranged, you'll be with us for an hour, Colin? Is that correct?
I've got to go back to work, unfortunately, after the hour.
Okay. All right, well then I'll try and direct a little more toward you than Ge0rge in the first hour, but both of you are up for this because, I want to go back over the ranch. I spent a day with Bob Bigelow this last week, and boy, what a day it was. I got a tour of the aerospace facility, and Bob talked a little bit in that conversation about the ranch, and I thought that things had calmed down, but according to Bob, it's still going on. True?
Yes, I think that's very true. Not only on the ranch, but in the entire area around the ranch. As I think listeners probably know, that area of northeastern Utah, near Vernal and Roosevelt, has been a hotbed for pretty well 50 years. And the ranch is right in the middle of that hotbed. So the activity really took off when the family moved on in 1994, and then went through a frenetic series of incidents up till about the year 2000. Then sort of got quiet, but yeah, everything we're hearing is exactly the same as what you were told.
Ge0rge, have you been up there investigating ever?
Many times. I went 3 times in the past year. The last time I was there was in October. Mostly what's happened is since the book came out, a lot of people have come out of the woodwork with their own stories about things that they've seen up in that area. Colin and Bob Bigelow were kind enough to allow me there the first time back in 2002. I've been pestering them because I was seeing the reports from the ranch, although I couldn't tell anybody about it, and it really drove me crazy. And they gave me permission to go ahead and and bring a camera to begin work on a documentary. And I've been back, I think, 10 times now. And it's just about as weird as it gets. Each time we've gone back, we've found new witnesses who've added new pieces to the puzzle, but we're no closer to any answers, that's for sure.
Do either one of you have any idea why the ranch, in fact, the area that you described, is such a hotbed?
I think there's hotspots throughout the world and the United States, and this one just seems to have been going on for decades, if not centuries. Even if you go back into the Native American legend, and the Ute tribe is very prominent and right in that area, you can go back word of mouth 10 to 15 generations, and it's always the same. In fact, I believe there's writings from Father Escalante that documents a weird flying object. And I think that's going all the way back to the 18th century. So that particular area, for whatever weird reason, has been a hotbed for decades, if not centuries.
All right, I've had, of course, a series of scientists on the program. I had one last night, and I asked her about this sort of thing, and it was her opinion that vibrational frequencies cause the human brain to see and experience the kinds of things that go on in the ranch and, of course, elsewhere in the world, but that it's entirely going to be explicable, and there's nothing weird about it. There are not ghosts, there are not things that move, there are not any of this. It's all, she said, in the human brain, and a specific vibrational frequency that causes people to see and experience these kinds of things. How would you respond to that?
Well, there's physical evidence. There's ample physical evidence at the ranch in particular that NIDS examined over a period of several years. Vibrational frequencies don't carve up cattle. Vibrational frequencies don't dig giant chunks of soil hundreds of pounds out of the ground. They don't leave tracks on the ground. Don't cause odors. That's a nice theory, but it doesn't explain what happened at the ranch. Not even close.
One of the famous cases on the ranch happened in March 1997, when we were called up the ranch to investigate this 84-pound calf that had been found on the property, and we had a veterinarian with us. He went through all of the pathological findings, did a full necropsy on the animal, and the first thing that he found was this sharp instrument that being used on this animal. It was subsequently verified through two forensic labs. So, vibrational frequencies, I think, are all very well for the observer who has nothing except observation. But, when you start getting physical evidence, as Ge0rge has just said, I think that vibrational theory begins to,
Vibrate away.
Yeah, that particular case, Art, was pretty weird. It was one of the most dramatic of all the mutilation cases that NIDS ever investigated. It was 10 o'clock in the morning, and the rancher and his wife were out tagging the ears of newborn calves. They were maybe 50 yards from their ranch house. I mean, it's flat ground. If you've ever seen video of what the property looks like. And they tag the ear of this calf. They go another 100 yards or so. And after maybe half an hour, they hear this noise. The dog makes a noise looking back in the direction where this calf has been tagged. They see the mother cow sort of dragging his leg, walking around in a circle, obviously upset. They go running back there, and this calf has been completely stripped of flesh. I mean, all basically that was left was bone and hide in broad daylight, right there in clear sight of where they were. No sound, no tracks, no anything. Very strange.
Yeah, very strange indeed. All right, well, it's the Gorman family, right? That's the focus of the book, Skinwalker?
Yeah, that's the name we're using, yes.
Okay. An obvious question is, with even a fraction of this going on, who in their right minds would stay?
Well, the Gorman family only lasted 18 months on that property. I mean, they purchased the place in 1994. It had been abandoned for many, many years previous to that. They brought their cattle on the property, and then essentially all hell broke loose. Within the space of 15 to 18 months, they lost up to 18 of their herd of 80 animals. And these were not your normal cattle, these were very, very high-end registered animals. So not only did they lose their livelihood, but they were constantly assaulted by these weird phenomena, everything from flying objects to discarnate voices, bizarre animals, poltergeist activity. And then you got a possession of. Sorry?
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I was going to just ask, when did Nids first learn of what was going on in this ranch?
In May of 1996. I think Tom Gorman had, at that stage, had reached, and the family especially, had reached a stage of crisis where they were basically sleeping on the floor together in this small homestead for protection. And he began to reach out. He started talking to people in the neighborhood. Word began to filter out. Somebody from the press found out, and then Robert Bigelow found out through that. And the thing that happened was Robert Bigelow flew up to Vernal and interviewed Tom Gorman, and within, I would say, a matter of weeks, it was decided that the Gormans would move off the property. The National Institute for Discovery Science, which was Paul Bigelow's organization that he had formed of mainstream scientists to study these anomalies, were then moved on the property. So it happened very, very fast. Summer to fall of 1996.
Can either one of you, and I know both of you are very close to Bob, can you tell me what motivates Bob, what makes Bob tick? Why, oh my God, the man is incredible. Not only has he led investigations like this one, but now he's going to space. I mean, this is not your average guy. What motivates Bob?
Well, you see, his family has a history of experiences going way back, and they've always had an interest in what we would call paranormal activity. And I think when Bob got into a position where he had all the resources he would ever need, he decided he was going to put some of those resources into resolving some of these mysteries, and he has. I would wager to say that he's put more financial support into paranormal UFO type research than any person ever in the history of the world. He's a complicated guy, obviously. One of the criticisms we've had about the book and about what Ge0rge was doing up at the ranch is that this must be some sort of a plot by Bob Bigelow to drum up support for some UFO paranormal hotel that he's going to build up there. I don't think people have any idea about just how big Bob Bigelow is and how insignificant something like that would be. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And the other aspect is somebody who in 1999, as he was walking around the ranch, began to, or 1998, began to ruminate on the possibilities of space. And then not only did he create something, but he actually made it happen. How many people do we know that own their own private space station that is currently orbiting planet Earth? And that has gone from dream to reality in only 7 years. He's built an aerospace company from nothing and successfully launched a space station in the space of 7 years. I mean, that's a testimony to his vision and to his ability to make things happen.
And I got a very good look at the second satellite that is about to be launched. So it's going to continue. If anything, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Bob Bigelow is a very, very complicated man, and I don't fully understand what drives him, but thank God he's there.
Absolutely.
All right, well, with regard to the ranch, I know some of the history, but there's an awful lot of new audience out there, and I know they would just love hearing some of the documented on-video things that have occurred on that ranch.
Well, the real beginning, I think, happened very shortly after we bought the property, as I said, in mid to late '96. The first real burst of activity occurred within about 5 months of that, and I think the most spectacular was the calf incident that Ge0rge just described, but that was part of a 5 or 6 day continuum of almost continuous happening. Less than 24 hours after that calf was found mutilated on the property, And as George mentioned, in broad daylight, the dogs were absolutely going crazy the following night when myself and Tom Gorman and another scientist up there decided to investigate. So we hopped into this truck and started going out into the middle of the pasture. First thing that the bouncing headlights caught was this large dark shape about 100 yards away on the fence line. And then the bouncing headlights picked up this two bright yellow orbs that were about 15 to 20 feet off the ground. Some what looked like very large animal perched in the tree. All three of us saw it, and we could think of nothing else except that calf that had been dismembered essentially about 24 hours previously. So we trucked on to about 40 yards from where the tree line was, and the closer we got, the larger this animal got in the tree. It was just staring back with these large yellow saucer eyes. Tom Gorman got out of the truck, and he's a trained marksman, grabbed his hunting rifle, and he said, they're not going to get any more of these calves tonight, was what he said. So he ripped off the shot, and instantly, it was like the lights went down. These two yellow orbs just disappeared. Tom was, triumphant. He had actually shot the animal. So, and he claimed that it had actually fallen to the ground. So we instantly got back into the truck and went right over to the fence line where the animal had fallen. This was like 1 a.m. in the morning, basically. We had flashlights, we had video cameras, so we spread out along the fence line to search for this wounded animal. And Tom found he started yelling about 20 yards to my left. That it was a huge animal. I think it was a dark shade that we had seen on approach that was separate from the animal in the tree. Tom let off a couple more shots into the undergrowth. He said that he had pretty well shot at close range this large, bear-like creature. It looked more like a large dog, 400 to 500 pounds. So we were crashing through the undergrowth. Remember, this is out in the boonies at 1 a.m. trying to find these wounded animals or dead animals, not knowing when something would leap out of the undergrowth at us. So, to put a long story short, there was snow all over the ground. We looked for tracks. We looked for the animals that we were sure had been hit. We found two tracks that were reminiscent of large raptor-like claws, very, very large claws, deep in the snow, but nothing else. There was absolutely no hint of blood, or no hint of dead animals. I mean, that was for trained mainstream scientists for having what looked like 400-pound animals to vanish into the ethers, having been shot at very close range by a trained marksman. This kind of our introduction to this whole, what we termed as the book Hunt for the Sleepwalker. It was like chasing these phantoms that 1 minute were causing serious damage, and at the next minute they were just vanishing in thin air. And
in strippers, it sounds like, my God, raptors. That calls to mind something truly all right. We're going to break right here. Colum and George, hold tight. We'll be right back. Colum Ge0rge, Ge0rge, the legendary George Knapp. Both my guests right now. This is Coast to Coast AM. Indeed, here I am, Colum Ge0rge, George Knapp are both here. Colum has the remainder of this hour with us, so we'll kind of work in on Colum. There was a incident that occurred at the ranch that I'd love to have him repeat because it caught my imagination. It involved somebody at the ranch with night vision seeing something fall through a hole that suddenly appeared in midair. Perhaps that in a moment. Bob Bigelow is a very complex man, and the American people should understand the magnitude of what he's doing for them. That said, Colum, there was an incident, wasn't there, in which something was seen to open up. Can you describe that?
yeah, I think the incident you're talking about happened in August of 1997, and that was really the summer when all hell broke loose on the ranch for Native people. It was like every time Native people were on the ranch, which was all the time practically, there was stuff happening. And it was about 2 a.m. when we had 2 observers on this ridge which overlooked the pasture, and the pasture had been a sort of an epicenter of all sorts of strange happenings previously. So they were staking it out. It was 2 a.m. It was getting late. Nothing had happened, so they were beginning to pack up their equipment when one of them noticed this small yellow light that began to appear on the ground about 200 feet below them, very close to the ground. As they watched this, they could see, strange, it was getting bigger and bigger. It looked like it was just growing, and located about 3 feet off the ground. So they thought, well, might as well unpack the equipment again and take a look at this. So one of the things that they had was they had state-of-the-art equipment, including night vision equipment, and then equipment to measure alpha, beta, gamma, you name it, like X-ray equipment. So they unpacked the equipment. One guy grabbed the night vision binoculars, the other guy grabbed a camera with infrared film in it. And the guy looking through the night vision equipment could see, he started describing a three-dimensional, rather than dull yellow light. This actually was a three-dimensional, brightly lit tunnel. And he started describing at the far end of this tunnel, it looked like there was movement happening. And the other guy was watching this large, about 4 foot in diameter, dull yellow light. He could not see anything three-dimensional. The guy noticed movement at the end of the tunnel, and then he gradually discerned this shape. It looked like a humanoid shape that was crawling towards him through this tunnel of light that was located about 4 feet off the ground in the middle of nowhere. And as this creature became clearer and clearer as it got towards the nozzle. Now, in the meanwhile, the guy who had the camera was taking these long exposure infrared film shot. But immediately after the creature split up from the mouth of the tunnel and vanished into the night, the diameter of the light started decreasing. And within a couple of minutes, it had shrunk almost to nothing, and then it was gone. So immediately it was gone. The first thing these guys thought of was, this thing was coming up the ridge right after us. So, they were listening for maybe 15 minutes, they didn't hear anything. So eventually, got the equipment and clambered down the 200 foot cliff all the way down to where the incident had happened. And one thing that was obvious was a very strong smell of sulfur in the air, exactly where it had happened. And the other thing was, there was no sense, there was no tracks, there was nothing except that strong smell. They immediately activated all of the portable instrumentation. They searched for anything that might have been left there in terms of residue. They checked for radiation. There was absolutely nothing visible. So after about an hour of reconnoitering, they went back to the command center, where there were 2 other of the researchers who had been stationed further down the ranch. I hadn't seen this incident. But, this was a classic incident that happened on the Ranch, where one technology that could see into the infrared was utilized. Something became very, very clear, because those yellow lights were very, very common on the property. And this was really the first time that they had been captured in the infrared. This night vision technology went very, very deep into the infrared. It was pretty obvious that this activity was not visible to the human eye, because the guy with the camera could only see the dull yellow light, whereas the guy with the infrared technology could see an awful lot more. Now, I personally saw...
I'm sorry, I would think then that you'd be using an awful lot of infrared from there on out.
Yes. Around the same time, a set of surveillance cameras that could see the infrared were installed on the property on telephone poles, and it was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If they were rolling, they were monitoring pretty well everything. There was a lot of incidents that happened that were just outside the range of those cameras. It was extremely frustrating, because every time we pointed the cameras in one direction or in multiple directions, stuff would happen off camera. So it was almost like a cat and mouse game.
I seem to recall it was one incident. I believe they had cameras. Finally, I guess in frustration, you had a couple of cameras pointed at each other, each on poles, separated by I don't know how much distance, and something was done. I'm recalling a story that Bob relayed for me in one interview about something that was cut, right?
Yes, that's actually, you're right. We had a set of cameras, covering the property, but one of those cameras was focused directly on another set of cameras. And for whatever reason, this happened in July 28th. Those three cameras suddenly lost power, and the whole focus started investigating why. And once we reached the pole and found what had happened, it was pretty obvious that something had, with tremendous force, ripped the wiring out of all the cameras on that pole. There was duct tape, layers and layers of duct tape that were binding the wiring that went to the ground and into the camera's video feed and the electric feed. All of that stuff had been ripped off. A PVC piping anchoring the wiring on the pole had been forcibly ripped off. So, something was very angry and was very forceful in dismembering those cameras. But we remembered that we had another camera on another pole that was still running that was directly focused on this damage. So obviously we ran back to the plant center and played back the videotape. And this happened at about 8:30 at night during the summer, so there was plenty of light left to see what had dismembered these cameras. We rolled the videotape, and it went all the way past the 8:30 timestamp, where we knew the previous cameras had lost power. And there was absolutely nothing on the videotape. You could see sort of cows in the distance grazing sort of peacefully. You can see the pole, and you can see the cameras. But nothing whatsoever to be seen. Now, obviously, we took the footage back to Las Vegas. We got it digitally enhanced. We got it blown up. We really went the whole route on this. And we got it enhanced to the extent where you could see the tiny lights on the three cameras as they lost power. You could actually see that on the videotape. But you could not see anything about what or who had completely destroyed those cameras. I mean, what had happened, it looked like it was a very, very forceful strength operation that had completely destroyed these cameras. And we caught it on film, but there was nothing on film.
So it's completely impossible.
Well, I mean, we went through all of these gaming exercises about was there any possibility that somebody in deep camouflage would crawl along the ground. But I mean, there was sufficient light, there was sufficient granularity on the video, especially when it was thrown off to detect anything close to that telephone pole with the cameras. And we went around the block on this. We replayed it hundreds of times. We analyzed it of the yin yang, and the bottom line is there was nothing caught on camera. But at the same time, this tremendous physical force. It goes back to your scientist from last night talking about vibrational frequencies. These are physical impacts that leave evidence that have nothing to do with vibrational frequencies.
Since we have you for only such a short time, I'm curious. Since I've been told that there's recent activity, what kind of recent activity around the area?
Well, I know that there's a lot of witnesses coming out with strange flying objects. Like one of the classic things that we've seen multiple times on the property were these dogs with light, and they may be different colors. We saw white ones. The Gorman family used to see blue ones. Red ones caused a lot of damage to cattle. Other eyewitnesses have come forward, especially recently around the property, to also claim that there's flying lights in the area. We don't know why this activity is continuing or what has triggered it again, but we know that there's a lot of encouragement from going anywhere near that property. It is under surveillance right as you speak, and so trespassing is absolutely out of the question. If trespassers will be prosecuted.
Okay, Colin, you said it started up again, so there was kind of a lull period. When did it begin again?
Well, this is just hearsay because it's been 2 years since I left. So some of the feedback that we've got, it started up less than a year ago. And, it's not only on the ranch, but that a lot of the eyewitnesses that have come forward as a result of the reading this book have essentially completely supported all of the activity that's on the property, but have extended the radius not only the ranch to the entire area. So this particular area of northeastern Utah has been a hotspot for so long. There are, we went through all the aeromagnetic surveys of the area. We were trying to track gravitational anomalies. We did an awful lot of outwork to think of anything unique about the area. We couldn't come up with anything.
The only rap that I've ever heard on Bob Bigelow and on Nin is that it keeps things pretty close to their chest. Your chest, I guess you're still there. So, and I guess, George, you've probably heard this from others, other researchers, that they get a little frustrated because it does keep things to themselves until they've got everything investigated and the final reports in. So at the beginning, when you heard about coming in, did you get in right away, or was there a bit of work involved?
Yeah, it took a while for me to convince both the column and Bob Bigelow to let me on the property, especially with the television camera. And I assured them, look, I want to work on this thing, but we'll wait until the time is right to go public with something. Because frankly, I mean, this is an ongoing scientific investigation. And I know it's frustrating for people outside the NIDS that they don't know what's going on. But I mean, you don't invite the public in to participate in cancer research or something. This entity, this precognitive sentient entity, which is Colonel John Alexander's name for it, it's an interactive process. And people being on the ranch, it affects what goes on there. So having trespassers and things of that sort is not something that NIDS wanted to do. So yeah, they kept it quiet. In addition, what the heck do you tell the world? I mean, the problem for a site like Column and others is that there's nothing on this ranch in the more than 100 incidents that NIDS investigated is reproducible. Nothing ever happened the same way twice. This thing, this entity, this intelligence was wily and cagey, almost like stalking big game or something. It never did the same thing twice. And it seems to be able to read people's minds. Well, if you're trying to investigate something like that and nothing is reproducible, and you're trying to be a reputable scientific organization that interests mainstream scientists into investigating paranormal type activity, you don't want to come forward with something that's half-baked and say, hey, by the way, we had a giant Sasquatch crawl through a tunnel of light, and what do you think about that?
So at this point, it's a good question, George, and Colin. What do you tell the world? What was, I haven't read Skinwalker yet, but what essentially did you tell the world about what you conclude is happening there?
Well, we essentially cataloged all of many of the phenomena that had happened, and then we went through all the possible explanations. The usual cast of characters. We investigated the idea of Corona. We went through the idea of dimensional reality. We went through extraterrestrial visitation. We went through hallucinations and things. But we deliberately did not draw a conclusion, an absolute firm conclusion from the research, because, as George mentioned, this has been an ongoing project. I left NIDS years ago, but I know that the research is continuing at a different level. But the object is not to draw any specific conclusions, because if we do, I think we can go off on a tangent that just goes nowhere.
Did you ever feel that there was a time when you were close to communication with some kind of intelligence or making a breakthrough of some kind that would be documentable and, the smoking gun?
Yes, we really settled during the summer of 1997. Beginning with that Knapp incident, right through the summer, there was a tremendous amount of activity. We were interacting with something. It was obvious. We had constructed a series of watchtowers that had dogs and biosensors on the ranch. We were getting a tremendous amount of visual sightings, and we were interacting with something that was manifesting in many different ways. But we definitely had the sense we were interacting. And we even went to the extent of attempting to be proactive in interacting with whatever was there. Leaving messages out, leaving boxes full of bricks and bricks with different symbols on them. There was many different attempts to communicate, but it was never, the communication never happened on our terms. It was always on whatever was up with property. We were never able to, catch it unaware, so to speak.
Were you trusted by your neighbors?
It was a very slow process. When we first arrived, we had the reputation as, this was this kind of very wealthy organization of scientific people with probably government connections. This whole thing was a lot of distrust. But I think over time, we visited the neighbors many times. We talked to them. I think over time, we did those trust. And certainly the immediate neighbors around the ranch all reported almost identical phenomena to what the Gorman family has reported on their property. So, the 5 or 6 properties that surrounded the ranch were experiencing exactly the same thing. So that gave us a tremendous credibility.
I guess the word has leaked out in some corners where the ranch is located, but let's make this deal right now. It's really more than a deal. You said it earlier that trespassers will be prosecuted. So if you know where the ranch is, don't go there. This is serious scientific work, and it's underway, still underway right now, right, Helen?
Yes, there are the ranch is under constant surveillance, and there are people stationed on the property. So it is absolutely not acceptable to trespass on that property.
All right, Colin, the hour's up. That's it. Boy, it went that fast. Colin, thank you for being here. I can't thank you enough for taking the hour and spending it with us.
Well, thank you so much, Art. Great to connect with you again.
We'll have to have you back for a whole show.
I'll
show us with you. All right, we'll do that. Colin, thank you. Good night. And George, you're coming up next. Here I am. George Knapp is here. And he really is, I was talking about it earlier, but he really is a legend in his own time. He is an amazing man who was a mainstream reporter in Las Vegas, an investigative, albeit eventually an investigative reporter. But quite a guy. And then suddenly, in the way that I did, in the way that I turned Coast from what it was to what it is, George kind of did the same thing. It's been a very strange career track for George. We'll talk about all of that and a lot more in a moment. A lot of people wouldn't know it, but George and I actually go back quite a ways. We've been in meetings that I can't describe with Bob Bigelow and all kinds of interesting things. So we've been at it for a while. George, what happened to your career? I mean, if you go way back, how in the world did you get from point A to B?
Folks from like you, Art, remember Area 2000?
Very well.
That goes back, 93? It's sort of like with you. I mean, I stumbled into a story about Area 51. I approached it the same way I approached the other story, and it pretty much changed my life. I'm still a mainstream reporter. I don't do a lot of UFO stuff. There's no prohibition by my employers, but they prefer me to do other things. and I do a reasonable job at it here in my hometown. But I guess I'll always be known as a UFO reporter because of those stories we did back in 1989. May will mark 18 years since those first reports on Area 51, so they helped put it on the map, the whole of our stuff. It's just a parallel to you, Mark.
The whole nation didn't hear about Area 51. They didn't hear those early reports, George. You know, the first one you did must have been rough. I mean, really rough.
Well, yeah, and it was amazing how it touched the pulse of the public, the reaction from the public, how much interest there was from just people on the street, just everywhere. I mean, the phones rang off the hook, and then other media passed to Area 51's door, and I took a lot of grief over Ge0rge. I still get grief when someone has a problem with me, some politician that I'm going after. They'll always whip out the flying saucers, little green men stuff. Sure, I don't mind. Because I work for the people, the public. They want to know about this stuff, so I don't craft my reports for politicians or other journalists.
Now I can understand why they whipped that one out, of course, and it's done to me, but it's a lot easier for me because it's my bread and butter. I do this. This is all I really do. For you, you've got to occasionally switch from very mainstream to, to Area 51, for example, and that's a much tougher path for you.
Yeah, I suppose so. But, as long as you keep focused and try to approach the topic the same way you would any other news subject, you can't get in that much trouble. You catch some street here and there from people that say, wish you ill, but I don't like
the same way. Area 51, is it still there?
Well, of course it's there. It's still a vital base in our national security apparatus. It is still as busy as ever, contrary to some erroneous reports. The planes leave the Janus terminal every day and fly out there, and they fly back at night. The buses still go up that dirt road. There are thousands of people there. You can see from satellite photos. They've installed new facilities. They're expanding, building things underground.
Yeah, there was this big story, or as you know, there was a big story that, what was going on with Area 51 had been moved to somewhere in Utah or somewhere in New Mexico or whatever. You're saying it's not true.
Right, I think that guy from Popular Mechanics went up the wrong road, found nobody there, and concluded that Area 51 had somehow shut down, and boy was he mistaken. I think perhaps the stuff we're talking about, if in fact there were ever any recovered alien vehicles out there, that they probably had been moved somewhere else or stuck in a closet somewhere. So there's no reason that so many people still go out there looking for it. If you wanted to test fly that stuff, it would seem you'd have to find a place deeper in the test site or some other base without so much attention.
From the investigation you did do way back when, is there any doubt in your mind that they were flying craft, interesting craft that have been recovered or obtained one way or the other from elsewhere?
Well, I suppose there will always be some doubt. I lean towards that being the case. I mean, it was not just Bob Lazar. I had more than 24 people who worked out there over the years who told me bits and pieces of the same story. Witnesses who've seen these things flying around, people who have worked on the program and seen things inside hangars and know that we were taking these things apart to figure out how they work, not the other way around. So I believe that it was there at some point. Can I prove it conclusively? No.
If you could go back now and not do those reports and not get involved with Area 51, Bob Lazar, John Lear, the whole thing, if you could just erase it and not do it, would you?
Oh, no, I do the same thing. I might do a better job of it. But there's no question that I would do it. It's just opened so much up for me, not only as a journalist, but as a human being. It opened my eyes to a lot of stuff that I might not have otherwise seen.
Yeah, I bet. All right, now the ranch. When you finally did get access to the ranch, did you see enough? Did you investigate yourself enough to become a believer that these stories that we were hearing were indeed happening?
Very much so. In part because of the credibility of Bob Bigelow and the people that work with NIDS. I mean, these are serious guys. They were not looking for attention. They were trying to investigate this stuff. And then, going up there and interviewing witnesses, talking to neighbors, people who live in the area, researching the history of it. People wonder if this is a government psychological warfare campaign or something like that. This stuff has been going on in that region before there was a U.S. government. Father Escalante, who had his sightings and wrote about it in his journal, that was back in 1776. Native American traditions say it's been going on a lot longer than that. So, it's not a government operation. It's there. It's real. I've interviewed enough people to see snippets of that, plus the evidence collected by the folks at NIST over a 7-year intensive study. I mean, that area is the most intensely studied paranormal hotspot in history.
Any guesses? If you had to guess, and I am asking you to guess, what do you think is going on there?
It's purely a guess. We try to rule out more things as opposed to coming to a conclusion because there's not enough evidence to demonstrate something conclusively. But it seems dimensional. It seems like this is a portal of some sort. The rancher, Tom Gorman, recalled seeing what looked like a sun in the sky, through which objects would enter and leave. And on the other side of this big orange sun-like object, you can see another sky. It suggests that maybe there are other worlds out there, parallel universes, alternate dimensions. I'm not smart enough to be able to figure that stuff out, but as we mentioned in the book, it's sort of consistent with some of the research on the cutting edge of physics and cosmology right now, like the concept of the multiverse. That's right. It fits, it fits. There's a physicist named Dr. Ge0rge, who's a regular listener of this program,
That you've been air?
No, well, we've got stuff that we can air, but if you're asking me, do I ever catch anything anomalous on camera? No.
Yes.
I do have some of the stuff from Ge0rge's archives, the mutilation incidents and tracks and things of that sort. We interviewed a lot of witnesses up there. We interviewed NIT staffers and collected a great deal of material for this documentary that one of these days I'll be finished. But nothing like a flying saucer, no. My buddy Colin, one of the first troops I made up there, my pal Colin, he decides that I have this inherent weirdness quotient and that maybe I might make something happen. So he takes me out in the middle homestead where a lot of this strange stuff had happened, where that tunnel light had appeared, where animals had been butchered and others disappeared, where a predator-type object had materialized, scared the bejesus out of everyone. It's the middle of the night. And he puts me on a chair there and leaves me to see if something comes to get me. Now, before this, my pal, before this, we had done some things that in the past had riled this entity up. We've got a big commercial and dug around a lot of dirt. That seems to get his attention. We built a big fire, made a bunch of noise, tried to get his attention, and then plucked me out of the chair for a while and the door left me. So I'd like to say that I was brave and I wasn't concerned at all, but I was. I mean, it was a scary thing. The only thing like everywhere mosquitoes, so I'm happy to report.
Okay, back to Mr. Bigelow for a moment. He's quite a guy, and Ross, I give these little messages that I do the program here. Ross in the West Palm Beach, Florida said, I'm looking at Mr. Bigelow's website right now. And honestly, Mr. Bigelow reminds me of Ezra Hatton, the billionaire in movie, your favorite movie, Contact. And I've been saying that for years. He really does remind me of Ezra Hatton. How about you?
Yeah, that's it. I got a tour of his facility out there right from the first day that it's been built. I've been there many times, and he's pointed out to me there on the morning of the launch. And Bob Bigelow had never done a TV interview before. I know he's spoken to you many times, and we got him to go on camera that he's good at. And now we are negotiating to get him on camera to talk about the ranch. And when I get that nailed down, that'll be a coup.
Oh, it certainly will be. And what a story! My God, what a story it'll be.
It's everything. It's a paranormal Disneyland. It's the UFO stuff of everything from Winnebago-sized UFOs to flying sombreros to the balls of light that Colin talked about. It's poltergeist type stuff. It's a laundry list of strange things. It's a heck of a story for us.
There have been certain offshoots to all of this, and the early stuff involved Bob Lazar, Tom Lear, Now, from today's perspective, as the story has unfolded, bits and pieces have either been confirmed or refuted over the years, I guess I've got to ask, what is your take on the two of them, Bob Lazar and John Lear?
Well, Paul Lazar, I know that the world of ecology is pretty made up in its mind that Bob is not truthful, and I don't think it's intentional with that. Now, there are gaps in his story and things that don't add up. For example, I always have said from day one that the weakest part of the story dealt with his lack of academic credentials. The schools that he went to say he was never there, and Bob has never gone to any great lengths to prove that he was there. I lived through this stuff. I know the strange things that were happening back there. I know how government agencies reacted to the story coming out, and the phones were tapped and people were followed around and threats were made back then. I know how Los Alamos Lab reacted to my inquiries about his employment. I know what happened when he got into legal trouble here and the stories that he told the courts when he was facing prison time. I believe him. I believe he's telling the story as he knows it. That does not mean it is a literal truth because we both know that games can be played by the folks who run these kinds of programs. So, I think there was something out there. I think Bob is telling the truth about it. I don't exactly know why it all spilled out as it did, but I hope to one day. John Lear is also a complicated guy. I don't take everything he says literally. But I guess I owe him a gratitude because way back when I was starting in this stuff, in fact, he got me to do the first UFO program, like that old talk show called On the Record that we did about a year before I ever met Lazar. And it was incredible. I put him on that little talk show that nobody watches. It aired like 5 o'clock in the morning, and had politicians normally on it. And my phone rang off the hook. And I wonder what the heck is this deal? I always had same kind of curiosity about UFOs as the next guy. But, I had John on again, and the response was tremendous. And I realized this is something I've got to look into. This is something that touches the pulse of the public. So I owe John a debt of gratitude in that sense. And he provided me with a great deal of information at the beginning. I do not take everything he says, though, literally.
That makes two of us. I agree with you on all counts. I have interviewed now, I think Bob Lazar 2 or 3 times. And I'll tell you something, George. When you get somebody with a wild story, you interview them once. It's generally the second and third time you interview them, the story grows. And that never happens with Bob. Bob's story is so consistent. His presentation of it is so calm, collected, and the story doesn't grow. It's just what it is. And I believe he's telling the truth.
Plus the fact that he doesn't care whether people believe him or not.
That's right.
He doesn't go out of his way to seek attention about this stuff. You don't want to believe him? Fine. He has nothing.
Actually, quite the opposite. He's hard to get to on the radio at all. It's kind of like, I told my story. That's it. I'd rather not come on again, but you can sort of drag him on, and when you do, you get the same story. It's so consistent.
That's right. I had a chance to fill in for you, Art, when you were in the Philippines, and had Bob on the show. And it was like pulling teeth to get him to do it. But once you get him there, get him rolling, it's good stuff, and it's the same stuff that you heard almost 18 years ago.
Do you believe that they took element, what was it, I think 115, right? Out of Area 51, do you think that happened?
That Bob and or cohorts did? Yeah, I do believe it. Yeah, because I saw it. I saw it it was in a leaden container that was at his house for a time period. I saw some experiments they did with what they call a cloud chamber, how this thing sort of spins. Like,
I had no idea you would see that.
Yeah. When Bob thought he was going to be, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'll go ahead. When Bob thought he was going to be taken out, he had this particle accelerator in his house, and he had this container with 115 in it right in front of him, and he was ready to flip a switch and say goodbye to Las Vegas, I think. I don't know if that was a dramatic gesture or what it was, but thank God he didn't do it. Now,
I've never heard this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's not a pretty picture. I've really made some effort over the years. I guess obviously not enough effort to find that stuff because it's obtainable.
believe. I wish they called something like that unobtainable. It is obtainable. So you actually, now again, you actually saw this stuff. You saw some of the experiments. This is really important.
I did. They had it in a lead-cased, disc-shaped container. And they also, at one point, had done, like I said, these experiments with the cloud chamber, where this it appeared to bend the smoke that was floating around inside the cloud chamber. I couldn't figure out how they did it. I'm not a scientific expert. I guess they could have pulled the wool over my eyes, but they were doing these experiments for themselves, Bob and some of his cohorts, and having fun with it.
Yeah, let's see. And, you know, this is doubted. This is one of the parts of the story very much doubted by many. And so you just sort of put a piece of the puzzle in the truth area that frankly, I wasn't all that sure of. So, wow.
Well, you know, Bob had said they had several hundred pounds of this stuff up there, and of course the scientific community scoffs at that. When Bob first said they had 115 up there, 115 officially did not exist. It does now, although the stuff that was synthesized lasted only a few microseconds and does not sound like what Bob described. Well, he sticks to the story that this would be a different isotope, and so you gotta mix different stuff in there for it to stabilize as he thought.
Yeah. Wow. Do you know what became of the 115 that Bob had?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
I see.
Well, I don't think I can tell you that. We can talk about it off the air. I still have sort of a plan in mind. It's going to be difficult, though, so maybe we can do that together.
So the 115 continues to be in existence.
Yeah, the interesting thing was, all the folks who make fun of Bob for that stuff didn't realize that there's this heavy ion research lab in Germany that was calling him up all the time, asking for suggestions and looking for guidance and how they could eventually make this stuff. And they have. Now they think.
Oh my God. All right, we're breaking. We'll be right back. This is Coast. I do live among the creatures of the night. My guest is Ge0rge Knapp. Ge0rge was here in the first hour. Ge0rge is a institution within the reach of the CBS affiliate here in Las Vegas. Absolutely an institution, actually a legend. And he just delivered a bit of serious breaking news. We'll be right back. All right, I'm going to leave the Area 51 115 part of it for a future conversation. I'm going to ask you, Ge0rge, how much you know that you have not yet reported on that you keep to yourself. I mean, is there a lot of stuff that you know that you can't or won't talk about?
In regard to 51?
Or any of this area?
Well, there are some details about that particular story, personal stuff that has not come out. On the subject of 115, by the way, Art, there is in the second series of UFO stories that I did in 1990, there is a brief snippet of video of the container, and it just is in passing. I don't make any reference to it. It's just sort of a little inside joke. So there's some of that stuff, yeah. There's some stuff about the ranch that has not come out. You know, Colin and I had a debate about it as we were working on the book of how much to include, because some of the things just get so far out there that we worry it was, you know, essentially it's something for everyone to hate. It just gets so, it almost becomes ridiculous at a point. And we debated about whether to leave some of it out. We tried not to, only because, you know, if we censor ourselves because we're worried about looking silly, we're not doing a very good job of telling the story. There are bits and pieces that have not come out, but I think they eventually will.
Okay. Lee in Wasilla, Alaska says, hey, I just signed up for Streamlink, love it, I guess. First, question about the Brooklyn Ranch. How much do you think the federal government knows about what goes on there? How much have they tried to find out? Have you had people poking their nose that you think are government types around the ranch?
Yeah, they've been there since the beginning. Tom Gorman had numerous sightings of these folks on the perimeter of the property. There have been a lot of flyovers, things of that sort. My most recent trip, I found a guy, a rancher, who was a friend of Gorman's and wanted to buy the property itself. They had some investments together, so there are people who know each other real well. He's been on the property, saw some of these objects floating around, had his own experiences. He was visited in the height of the activity. He got visited by a guy from the U.S. Navy. And I thought, well, you know, this story's not going to go anywhere. As I'm interviewing him about this guy, asking questions about what's really going on the ranch. And then he whipped out a business card, and he gave me the guy's business card. So I wrote all that stuff down. He's a real person. I'm not going to give a name just yet. I can tell it to you privately. But I'm going to track the guy down and see if I can get him to tell me who the heck he was working for. Now, the question arises, I suppose, is the government there monitoring what was going on, or are they causing it? And I think Tom Gorman, the rancher, for a lot of the time he was there, thought it was some sort of a military operation, that the government was doing this, trying to, for some reason, drive him off the property. That's not the conclusion we reached. I mean, some of the stuff that happened, it's just not something that humans can do. You know, the scary stuff, not the monsters, not the UFOs. The scary stuff to me were the more mundane things that happen on the property. And this, I can't imagine some Delta Force commando doing. For example, the mom goes to town, she buys a week's worth of groceries, comes home, takes all the groceries out of the bag, puts it in the cupboard, goes to the bathroom, comes back, and all the groceries are back in the bag. Or she every morning she'd take a shower, she washes the floor, she puts her towel or her hairbrush on the cabinet. She would get out of the shower and they're gone. She'd find like the hairbrush in the freezer, or you know, weird little stuff like that that just makes the hair on my arm raise up. And it's the kind of thing that I don't see a commando force or military ops doing that sort of thing.
No, I don't think so. Although, you know, you just don't wonder if I don't know. I guess it would be a way of diverting attention if they could accomplish something like that. But as you point out, that kind of thing, no.
Well, plus the fact that it's been going on for so long. I mean, the military is responsible for the UFOs that were flying around there 50 or 100 years ago.
That's right. All right. Your reports, as much as anything else in the world on Area 51, has caused, you know, I get these calls all the time. Art, I'm going to go to Area 51. I'm going to take some friends of mine. We're going to crash and get our way into Area 51. Do you have any advice for these folks that think they're going to crash their way into Area 51?
Don't try it. You're out of your mind. I mean, it is a secure location. A lot of people have tried that. They get in trouble. They get caught. They have sensors all around the facility. I've heard bits and pieces of stories of people who have tried. I only know of one that got in, and that was this guy who walked all the way across the test site from the other side, looking for evidence that the 49ers had traveled across Papoose Lake, and eventually he found them. And he managed to evade all that. He's died of cancer, now perhaps from radiation exposure while he was out there. But he's the only one I know that's ever managed to do it. I really strongly advise against that sort of thing.
I remember working for KPWN in Las Vegas, Ge0rge, during the years they were still doing the tests, and we'd go on the air and say, look, there's going to be a test at such and such. We're now warning people on high buildings and precarious locations to get down, and then, of course, there would be, you know, a nuclear-induced earthquake. And so that went on for years and years and years. Do you know anything at all about how dangerous it still might be to go trekking across that ground?
Well, there are hotspots out there. I think there are radioactive waste sites as well that you can see on test site maps. I mean, they map it out and spell it out pretty clearly. I think for most of the above ground tests, those areas are pretty safe, but there are bad spots out there. There's no question about it. Plus, they're testing all sorts of other things. You know, they have different programs that are trying to use for the test site, materials programs, chemicals, things of that sort, that goes on out there, and there's dangerous stuff. I mean, it's a national security installation for a reason.
Sure. Do you have any insight? Are you able, for example, to occasionally, well, because you've been on the story for so many years, even when you're not on it, you're on it. And I would imagine that an Area 51 employee who wanted to talk would find you. Have they?
Sure, more than 24 of them over the years. Wow. Some of them I did not find credible, but the 24 I'm talking about are people who I did find credible and who had little bits and pieces and weren't trying to make more of it than they should. Sure, they might be the case. It's been a while since any have come forward. That program, like I said, I can't imagine that anything is still out there. And I suspect that they may think that I'm monitored in some way, and if they had information and wanted to come forward, might think twice about it. But yeah, I get them.
You probably are monitored.
I don't doubt it. If for a while, I certainly was, because some of the guys who were following me around for a while told me about it years later. So I'm not sure that they still tuned in, but maybe they listen to all of it.
I'm sure they listen to this program. I've assumed for years that my phones were tapped. And I still assume that. I just assume it. And I'm sure yours were. But you actually talk to people who've been assigned to follow you?
Yeah, they sort of laughed about it. This was 6 or 7 years after the Lazar stuff sort of peaked.
Well, if the Lazar story was pure fabrication, if the Lear stuff was complete fabrication, then why sign anybody at all from the government on you?
Yeah, it's curious. You know, like the phones, there was clear evidence that the phones were being monitored at the TV station. And it really bothered me at the time. But I had 6 different people who called, offering to give me bits and pieces of information who were accurate, were visited by various entities and told to shut the hell up. And I verified those. One of them even used to work for the TV station. He had been at 51 and offered to give me an interview with his face blacked out. And the very next morning, he saw us at work by guys speaking in his telephone and his microphone and stuff, and followed home, and he got scared. I had a lady who works for the local court system who had previously been a secretary for a test site contractor, one of the big companies out there, who said that she had transcribed this meeting where they discussed crashed saucers, recovered discs and bodies, and she, through a third-party police officer, had agreed to meet with me and tell me the story. And the very next day, after we had our initial phone conversation, she gave a visit from these 2 guys, supposedly from her former employer, who first of all reminded her that she still was under some sort of security restrictions, and then they said, "We know that you travel back and forth to see your daughter in Los Angeles, and if she comes here, we hate to see an accident happen to either one of you." Well, she was petrified.
Of course.
And then, like I said, that happened 6 times in a row, and I don't think it's realistic.
Now, I know there are signs in the area that say lethal force. I guess there are still signs saying lethal force can be used if you go beyond this point.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think that for somebody who might want to tell a tale, the government is prepared to use lethal force no matter where it needs to be applied?
I don't think so. I mean, they've had so many intrusions out there, and you will recall that, at the edge of the base is 11, 12 miles from the main facilities itself. You'd have to, so they have a lot of leeway there. There's a big buffer zone. They know you're there. So they don't need to shoot you as soon as you cross the border. And mostly what they do is detain people, and they call the Lincoln County sheriffs and haul you away. I've heard wild stories about shooting out tires and things of that sort. I've seen video that they will buzz you. They buzz me in helicopters and we'll chase you out of there if it comes to it. But I don't think they shoot you unless they really had to. If you were barreling along your Winnebago and head on getting out on the flight line. Right.
They do have that official authorization.
Oh, they do. Yeah, it's written. I don't know what the U.S. code is, but it's written right there on the police signs all over the base.
Would you say you're convinced or close to convinced that at one time they had UFOs, they had alien craft?
Yeah, I think so. I think they had something that looks like it. And as I said, enough of the people, in addition to Lazar, said that we were taking them apart and figure out how they worked. And it makes a lot of sense on another level that if in fact there is recovered technology like that, and of course in ufology there are many stories about that sort of thing. Some of them very well documented. The Roswell case coming to mind. If in fact you had that stuff in Area 51, might be a logical choice where you would take now as a result of the stories, the coverage you've given it and I've given it, there are still thousands of people every year who make the trek out into the desert to see whatever is flying around out there. People have suggested, well, maybe this is disinformation to divert attention away from something else that was flying around out there. Well, if so, then it's been a miserable failure because it is a attracted far more attention, the UFO stories, than they ever could have possibly imagined. I mean, every major news organization in the world has been there. You can't hardly turn on the television without an Area 51 special drinking sometimes a day or night. And as I said, people are still going out there. So if they didn't want attention for something they had going on out there, that was a bad call.
I had quite a number of interviews. I was lucky to have interviewed Colonel Corso a number of times before his death. He maintained that as a result of Roswell, there was a lot of recovery. There was recovery of all kinds of technical stuff that was slowly then, that was his job, to filter this stuff into U.S. industry in a quiet kind of way. Do you buy into that?
Well, I do. I met Colonel Corso in, I think, 1992, which was, 5 years before the Roswell anniversary, 5 years before the rest of the world heard about it. We had a deal for him to come out here, and I was going to interview him on camera, and that didn't happen. A couple of years later, I told Bob Bigelow about that story, and he arranged to go back and meet Corso and hear his story. I have a copy of his original manuscript, which is from what eventually was published. And we checked him out. We did a lot of legwork to find out that he was who he said he was. And if in fact that stuff happened, that our government had it, the military had it, then it would have ended up in Area 51 eventually. That would be my guess.
Okay, you said the manuscript was substantially different. Can you document any ways important for us?
Not quite as ambitious in its scope in claiming the different technologies that we know so well today, that all of them developed directly from recovered stuff, crash sites. That's the main thing. It just wasn't quite as expansive, and I did not find that Colonel Corso was quite the dashing swashbuckler that he became in later years. It just seemed a lot more ambitious when it finally came out. Now, Will Burns, who has been on your show many times, I find him to be a very credible guy. He's the one to put these questions to, because he knows a lot more about it. But like I said, it was a much more modest version than what I read.
Next to Roswell, and certainly in modern times, the Phoenix Lights close by to us. In fact, we actually have heard of an offshoot sighting in Las Vegas, as you well know, from the Phoenix Lights. Seems to be the most modern occurrence. You looked into the Phoenix Lights, obviously. What did you conclude?
Well, I looked into it somewhat. I would hate to be, an expert, considered an expert on it. I looked at it somewhat, and I don't know. I really can't tell. I know that those videos don't look like flares to me. They don't operate like flares. I think the military really screwed up in their explanation for this thing. First by saying nothing, and then coming out with this lame excuse about training operations and exercises. I don't think those look like training exercises to me, the videos I've seen. So I think it was something else, whether it's from way out there, I don't know, or whether it's some secret military plane. I mean, people are seeing a lot of these giant black triangles all over the country. NIDS did an excellent study on that, by the way, before the operation sort of faded. But it sounds to me like we've got something like that.
As you know, I saw that triangle. I saw it so close, Ge0rge, I could have thrown a rock at the damn thing. It came directly over my head and that of mine, and then just sort of kept going, floating across the valley. It certainly wasn't flying, it was floating, it's real, whatever it is. Do you have any insight on these triangles?
Well, it seems to be some sort of a weapons platform, an observatory platform of some sort. One of the stories I heard from some intelligence folks is that it's basically sucking up data, that it flies over and sucks up computer records and phone records, intercepts all kinds of electronic communications, and just sucks it up and analyzes it. That's one version. I can't tell you if that's true or not. But it would seem to me it makes a lot of sense. I mean, these things have flown slowly over American cities. If it's a secret project, that doesn't seem very smart to expose for that kind of thing. There are trajectories that have been analyzed by these that show sort of the most common routes for these things that involve air routes between different military bases, Air Force bases. So I had nothing definitive, but I suspect we've got something like this. It doesn't mean all the ones that we see like this are or hours?
Well, what I saw wasn't flying. The only explanation could be it was a lighter than air craft of some sort. There was no noise. It was going so slowly. It must have been doing 30, 35 miles an hour at the most, maybe less. And no noise, big, metallic looking, not flying. I mean, you got to put enough air under something for lift. It wasn't doing that. It was floating. So either it was lighter than air or it was defying gravity. I have no idea which, but it was doing that.
Well, there is a paper trail of our military requesting those exactly craft just like that for transport or whatever, asking that these things be developed. Now, whether they have, I don't think there's a smoking gun on that, but it would make sense that we might want something like that. Now, it doesn't mean that, because some of these things float, as you described, but I've also heard descriptions of them floating for 1 minute and then zoom, taking off in the next.
That's right.
Yeah, I really don't know what to make of them.
All right. We've covered a lot of ground. When we get back from the break, which is rapidly arriving, we're going to open the phone lines for Ge0rge Knapp. Now, please, folks, if you can make your questions relevant, they can cover an awful lot of territory because that's exactly what we've done. The high desert and the great American Southwest. I'm Old Bell. Good morning, everybody. Here I am. Ge0rge Knapp is my guest. He is fully an institution and a legend. I should laugh about that, but I won't because he really is. He's been in Las Vegas for as long as I can remember, reporting for our CBS affiliate here. Any number of times he has petitioned for the station, looked into Area 51, and an awful lot of what you're hearing tonight. Now, I want to get his comment in a moment on what happens in ufology. And what happens is it eats its young. It's absolutely horrible what goes on. Ufology just sort of self-destructs. So in a moment, we'll find out what Ge0rge thinks about that. And your calls coming right up. Ge0rge, ufology does more damage to itself than all the chuckling newspaper articles that are ever written. Any comments on that?
Can't argue with you there. Our ufology is a mess. I mean, it starts with the premise of what's a ufologist, and anyone can become one just by saying so. There are a lot of really good people in the field who have worked for a long time to get to the bottom of this mystery. But they do it in spite of ufology because you got so many crazies and zealous religious type saucer nuts who are firmly convinced they know what the truth is. They know the mind of the aliens. They know where these people come from. I try to approach it as a news story. You can follow the evidence where it's seen. Don't lock yourself into something. Ufology wants to be taken seriously. It wants respect for mainstream science. I don't blame mainstream scientists from staying away from it because of all the fact fighting and backstabbing and infighting and nastiness there is in the field. It drives people away. Dr. John Mack is an example. He became an instant luminary in the field and stuck with it despite the fact that he was under attack by his colleagues at Harvard University and despite all the loonies that the field attracts. Dr. Jacques Vallée, who I think is maybe the most important researcher in the history of ufology, he basically walked away from it. He was tired of it. It's not getting anywhere. So yeah, it's a mess. I don't see it getting any better. People dig in their heels and think they know the truth, and it's almost a religion to some folks. It's a wonderful and important mystery that deserves to be taken seriously and be investigated fairly. It hasn't happened. And I think a lot of that has to do with just the nutcases as it attracts.
Carl in Akron, Ohio, asks if we're getting any closer to government disclosure of UFO reality.
I would have to say no. I don't think so. Art, you and I have been this a long time, and it seems like every year you hear, oh yeah, it's just around the corner. I don't think so. If you want to go back to Area 51, as an example, Plant has been working with this congressional investigator and worked on the black budget. And he put it this way: look, when this stuff comes out, people will go to jail. I mean, they've been stealing money and diverting it from legitimate national security programs, lying to Congress. Maybe in the beginning there were good reasons for the cover-up, but because of how upsetting the reality might have been if the news had broken. Now I think it has a lot to do with covering their butt.
George, do you remember the official government explanation for Roswell? Do you remember the silly press conference they had after we saw the dummies that they claimed were wrong? Do you remember that?
Oh, I sure do. Which version are they going to come out with next week? They're so hopelessly muddled that story, and maybe that's on purpose, because, they told what probably is the truth at the beginning, and there was the first cover story about a weather balloon, and then later it was the whole secret probation weather balloon, and the bodies, and, ufologists have not done a very good job themselves. We can't seem to agree on what the exact date of the crash was, or whether it's one crash or two, or where it happened and how many bodies. I suspect something really did happen. I think the government's lying about it, but it's now so hopelessly muddled, I'm not sure we're ever going to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, me too. Roger in Detroit, Michigan, you're on the air with George Knapp. Roger in Detroit. Going once, going twice, going on. Jason in San Diego, hi. We don't seem to be hearing the people that we're putting on. Jason in San Diego, are you there? I think we may have. Are you still there, George?
Yes.
Okay. Let's try one more. Let's see. Mike in North Dakota, you're on the air. Are you hearing anybody, George?
No, I'm not.
Not either. I wonder where our board out went. Okay. All right. They're checking into it, George. Apparently, these people are here. They're all actually there. But for some reason, we're just unable to hear them. So we'll work on it. We'll see what we can do with some sort of technical problem. Anyway, have they used up the ranch any professional psychics, remote viewers, people of that caliber?
Yes. There was a remote viewer. I don't think I can use his name, but you can guess about him. It's probably the most renowned remote viewer who was tasked by Bob Piccolo to take a look at it and described it to a T. I think he was here. He was up in Mount Charleston when he did the remote viewing. I've never seen the ranch, but drew it an exact replica. It's really amazing. He had a sense of some sort of foreboding, some sort of an evil presence underground in a particular part of the ranch, and it sort of fits with a lot of what we've heard over the years from other people. The Native Americans believe that whatever this thing is, that it sort of lives in the ground at least part of the time. The people who live on the range, the people who still live in the area, say they often hear things underground, almost like a train rumbling down there. And as I mentioned before, one of the things that seems to get that entity stirred up is moving earth around. In fact, when Tom Coleman bought the property from the previous owners, they included a very strange stipulation in the contract and sales agreement that he was not to do any digging on the property until he had until he gave the previous owners prior notice, which he thought, well, that's just sort of an eccentric little tidbit that they throw in. He didn't understand it, but he sort of understood it later.
All right. Well, that brings up one more interesting topic, and then I'm hoping we can go back to phones. And that is, he sensed a great foreboding. So, if you had to make a call, George, and you had to say, these are friend or foe, Dr. Jenkins thinks we're all pretty foolish and think they're warm, fuzzy little creatures who have our best interests in mind. But what do you think?
Well, it's sort of a mixed bag. I suspect that whoever they are, that they're a lot like us, that maybe they have more than one motive, there's more than one agenda being played out. My general feeling, though, is that they could do us a lot more harm than they've done if they chose to do so. That was amply demonstrated on the ranch. They didn't mutilate people. They mutilated cattle. They incinerated dogs. They did other things to other kinds of animals, but made a distinction between doing that to humans. They certainly terrorized people there, and there were psychological scars and a couple of minor physical impacts, but in general, they could have done a lot worse if they wanted to. So there is at least some level of restraint there. And what their real motives are, I have no idea.
Well, that's a little bit of hope anyway. All right, I'm told that we now, I apologize to those that we missed because of the cable error. Bill in Arizona, you're on with Ge0rge now.
Hello, it's good talking to you folks tonight. I'm calling from Arizona, and I'm not too far from the one night my family and I were coming back from Lake Mead, which I'm sure you're both familiar with. We saw a funny spring lights, I have no idea what it was. I drove up on it, and when we got to where it was about 2 miles away, it was not. But more of it. Well, within a week, there was a very expensive motor on it, about an 8 to 10 foot dish, parked out there towards the lake where we saw it. And the dish was rotating like a radar screen or something like that. And within 2 days after that, there was 6 or 7 helicopters that spent 2 days. And those are scooped and placed all over my house. You could actually see the guys who were actually seeing them flying around the area. And they searched this area very, very well. So I was wanting to know if either one of you had heard anything about that.
Well, I certainly have not heard of it, but it does bring up the subject of government involvement where these things are seen, Ge0rge.
Well, there's ample evidence that the government monitors this stuff on a regular basis, and I would hope that they would. I suspect that they don't know. They don't know the ultimate answers to the obvious question any more than we do. They might have more information, but I'm not sure that they know what the bottom line is. As for Lake Mead, we have records dating back to the 40s of UFO sightings, pretty dramatic sightings over that area. However, as a caveat to this, that they do use Lake Mead for regular training exercises. I've been on the lake in boats when I've seen these giant helicopters dropping Navy SEALs or commandos or something into the water and then retrieving them. So I'm not trying to throw water on what you saw, just that they do use that area on a regular basis for regular prosaic training exercises.
All right. Current wildcard line would be Dan in Seattle, Washington. You're on with Ge0rge.
Yes, Art, this is Dan in the U District. It's been a long time since I've gotten through.
Yes.
By the way, welcome home, Art. Ge0rge, I've got a question. To see if there's any updates on that email you sent me about that incredible video that I emailed you about a couple years ago, shot by an Iranian newsman that that's now, I guess, in the possession of TV1 in Iran. I'm sorry, I haven't seen it. I don't have access to it. We're not on very good terms with the Iranians these days. Yeah. I don't remember what you're mentioning. Yeah, I remember you referencing it, but I have not seen it. Yeah, it was an incredible video. In fact, I was shocked by it because you can see detail on it. You can see windows and everything.
Okay, well, again, it's going to be very muddled because right now, I would imagine that whatever we've got that we're willing to break out so that we can watch Iran very carefully is probably flying in the skies over Iran. And of course, there have been tons and tons of recent reports of UFO activity in Iran. So, what do you think, Ge0rge?
Oh, we're on the same page on that one. I'll bet there are all sorts of UFOs flying over Iran right now, and that we built most of them.
Exactly. All right, Roger in Detroit, Michigan, you're on the air with Ge0rge now.
Good morning, Art and Ge0rge. I have a question about a fellow named Phil Schneider. I watched a video. He did a couple videos, and I watched it online. I haven't been using a computer that long. I haven't been listening to you very long, but I enjoy your show. And is Phil Schneider for real?
I'm sorry, I don't know the guy.
Oh, you don't know him? You've never heard of him? Never seen any of his interviews online?
No, can't say I have.
Oh, okay. All right.
What does he talk about?
Well, he was supposedly a geologist that worked for the government, and he supposedly killed one of the graves at Elton Base, and he was supposed to be part of, Lori Title when he was talking about all this stuff, and then he just came up dead. It was kind of scary watching it. He even had a couple fingers missing off of one hand where he claimed he was shot.
Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like somebody would like to probably know more about, or possibly know more about. There's so much confusion in this whole area of ufology, and separating the wheat from the chaff is just a constant full-time job. Jeff in California, Western Rockies, you're on with Ge0rge.
Hi, I'm Ge0rge. I'd like to know if either one of you know any more about the UFO in North Territory states that Colonel Corso described in the day after Russia. I want that tomorrow. The reason I asked you, I was stationed right next to the transferred to the warehouse style building, and it's not just bulldoze. It has a better type chamber in it. What I understand from a person who worked the air conditioning there on the base. And he indicated there was a whole lot of air conditioning in that building. And it's run by Northrop Grumman, and it has been run by those station missile systems operations for many years. That building is still there and everything else that's pretty much remodeled or redesigned. Do you guys know any more about that particular aspect that of course I'm described in the book?
I don't. I'm sorry to say. I'm hate to be striking out for you here, but I've read the same stuff, but that's pretty much it. Sorry.
Okay, well, I got much that you guys would like to know what I should know about it.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, please do. You said the building is still there despite everything else being demolished, so that's pretty interesting. If you have anything on it, by all means, please get it to us. Mike in Louisiana, you're on with Ge0rge.
Yeah, I'd like to say something again. You didn't mention, Bell mentioned this, he had seen a crab, seen a punch.
Oh, yes.
And they were at a company, Ariana 26, and you can even find them on the web. They've done a little gadget called a Deltoid function feed. It was lighter than their aircraft, but it wasn't shaped like an original Hindenburg. It was aerodynamic craft. One of the things that come along is aerogel. An aerogel is a solid cover. It's actually a lighter than air material for building large structures. And
It could be. It could be. I can't deny that it could be something like that.
yeah, the U2, when we got into the U2, it's just, the SR-71 was already in operation. And things have been a black project for sure, but when I was in the service in the late 70s, I think the things that in Kansas that definitely weren't original. I kind of think it could have been unmanned vehicles back then. Because one of the things, there was a nuclear jet engine project that Pratt and Whitney and General Electric were involved in the early 60s. There was also NERMA, which was another option. We didn't get to Saturn V when we were going to the moon. And all these projects had problems with shielding the crew. But if you can solve some of the problems, I wouldn't see why we wouldn't have we use submarines to put people in important places that are required. So we probably have terrestrial technology.
Well, maybe so, sir. But here's what I would say: if we really have these triangles, and if these triangles are all ours, then why fly them predominantly over interstate highways? Why fly them where people are going to see them if they're all this big a secret? Why make them so public in the sense that I think the major place they've been seen is over interstate highways.
That's true. Yeah, the study I referenced earlier tracked it, over highways, over cities, and on air routes between air bases. And of course, if they're from somewhere else, they might have interest in all of those things.
Yeah, it does make sense. It's a big secret, and why it in full public view. One remind Joe in Los Angeles, you're on with Ge0rge Knapp.
Hey, our question one night, I really do feel special. I have a question here for Ge0rge. I've seen either special on the History Channel or something like Minor Channel. It was talking about these cattle mutilations, and I wondered if you could expand on what they were saying. They basically tried to debunk cattle mutilation by saying certain bacteria are made, misquoting them, germs or bacteria that were able to be more precise than the surgeon human can. And I wondered if you had any more information for that, and I'll take the answer off the air. Thanks, guys.
Well, there have been a variety of explanations for cattle mutilations over the years, and none of them really work. I mean, we heard it was snake nests, we heard it was predators like coyotes. Well, now this one. And if there's no bacteria, for example, then you cut out that cap on the skin off the wrench, not in a matter of minutes, not taking 75 pounds of meat off of his bone and ripping the bones out. Some of these mutilation cases, the ball joint has been ripped out of the steers. You know, it's very precise parts that are taken. You look up at them under a microscope and it's surgical. There have even been indications of the high heat used as cutting instruments, taking shears. You know, the natural explanation doesn't cut it.
Hold it right there, George. This is Coast to Coast AM. We'll be right back. You know, I kind of wonder if George, who's been at this game for a long time now, has any advice for other reporters out there around the country. There are a lot of them, radio and television reporters, who might consider delving into this realm. In a moment, we'll find out. Mike in Auburn, Washington says, "Hey, Art, I thought you said on the show past two nights you're not using screeners anymore. You obviously know the names of the people who've been phoning in tonight, so you're using screeners." Hold on, no, I didn't say that. What I said was, I'm not using screeners during opened lines. Mike, and anybody else who might be confused on the issue, during open lines, I'm doing on-the-screen calls. When we have a guest, it's a different story. So there you have it. We want to make sure that there is some sort of relevant question that you're asking. Now, George, here's a relevant one for you. There are many reporters across the country. Some of them, no doubt, are thinking of doing stories in this area, perhaps, for the first time. Do you have any advice for them?
Well, I would say come on in, the water's fine. However, these are treacherous waters. There is a tremendous learning curve in this. You can't just jump into the deep end and think you're going to solve this mystery. I remember naively thinking back when I started, well, heck, give me 6 months, I'll get to the bottom of this thing. Well, here it is. A lot of years later, and I'm still no closer to it because, there is a learning curve. You have to figure out who to trust and who not to trust, who to believe, what to believe. I mean, 95% of all that I hear in the field is just nonsense, or there is a prosaic explanation. Is that other 5 to 10%? That's the heart of the matter. That's interesting. That would be where I would focus my attention with. Take it slow. That would be my advice. Take it slow. Learn the ground rules and who to trust, because it is treacherous and it's hard to figure out what to believe.
Yeah, that and plus what you mentioned earlier, that then when you go back to another story, they're going to be tossing little green men at you for the rest of your career.
That's true, and I think that has a great deal to do with why the networks don't give report coverage. The History Channel has a UFO show on every night, and they do fine work. But if we really want to generate some change to get people fired up, you need somebody like CBS News covering this stuff. When they've done UFO stories, they always get a tremendous reaction, but those network correspondents don't want to be slammed with this. I remember when 48 Hours came here to do a UFO special. They did an MR show. Of course, Area 51 was part of it. They had to drag those reporters kicking and screaming in these swing out programs because they were worried to follow it. It doesn't have to be that way. You get good reporting.
Peter Jennings, remember the Peter Jennings special?
Yeah.
Well, of course, ufology roundly criticized the Peter Jennings special, and from their perspective, perhaps rightly so, it didn't do everything they wanted, and of course it couldn't. However, for the general public, I thought it was a good first step.
I did too. I mean, obviously they gave short shrift to a couple of parts of those stories. Roswell, I thought they really did stand Freeman and injustice, and I thought on the abduction stuff, they dismissed that pretty easily. I was happy to see that there was coverage, and a lot of the tone, at least for the first part of the program, was pretty supportive of this is a legitimate area for inquiry. The ultimate end was not very satisfied, but I was like you. I was glad to see some attention.
Well, I wonder if the feedback encouraged them to do a follow-up or discouraged them from ever touching it again. We'll find out. First I'm going to line Andy in San Antonio. You're home with George.
Hey, George. I just want to ask George if he knows about a test to recover one of the first atomic aircraft of the U.S. developed at Roswell at the same time.
Sorry, I don't know anything about that one.
The reason I asked is I had a buddy who lived with his grandfather and had been out there Russell. He couldn't have been there at Russell and he was in the aircraft, but he was at the level of top secret clearance that he was out there. His purpose was to recover atomic aircraft developed by the U.S. top secret seal. And he went out there to recover the craft and ran into some, military and everything. I can't go out there. There's something out there. He's like, well, I'm going to go get my craft. And he's trying to go before the repairs. He can't show it. So he ended up going out there and found some aliens and described the craft to me and the aliens to me. And that was pretty interesting. He said that he saw live bodies and dead bodies. And the lives of the aliens communicated to him that in the same dialect, he said, I would be much obliged if you lit up on top of the hill and covered one of the bodies for. And so he recovered the aliens and went out to find the top secret aircraft out there.
Well, that's a heck of a story. I've never heard of us having an atomic powered aircraft, certainly not back then. That would be an amazing technical achievement. Art, you ever heard of us having an atomic aircraft?
No, that's new one. We're kind of getting to a point where those who participated in Roswell as adults are pretty much not with us any longer. Is that story going to eventually die, or do you think it will sort of live on and expand?
Well, like you said, all of the first-hand witnesses are rapidly disappearing. I can't imagine that there would be government files left somewhere where the public could access them and deal with the truth about Roswell. I don't know where you go from here. Maybe there's still a Jesse Marcel out there somewhere hanging on and wants to tell a story, but I think it's just about gone as far as you can go. However, you've got folks looking into other kinds of crashes. They had a crash retrieval conference here organized by Ryan Wood here in Las Vegas back in, I think, November. And you got a lot of folks who are interested in that particular discipline. So maybe Roswell isn't going to have any new secrets come out, but there are other ones to investigate.
Now, you remember Congressman Schiff, Congressman Schiff, he requested the records and they were all destroyed or missing.
Yeah, and I suppose there might be a vault somewhere, but it's not a vault that you or I are ever going to see.
Jason in San Diego, you're on with Ge0rge Knapp.
Well, I'd like to say that there are nuclear powered aircraft. In fact, the U-2 and the SR-71 are both nuclear powered, and also understand that in 1989,
Stop there. I'm not aware they're nuclear powered.
So they have practice.
the Federation of American Scientists online, so you can punch in Aspen and enter aerospace plane with nuclear engines. In fact, we've been working on one since the Manhattan Project. The United States was interested in making an atomic powered aircraft in order to basically stay up there for basically 20 years.
I don't know.
This is the question I want to have. In 1989, when the SR-71 was being retired, Doug Nickel went around and buried the SR-71, which were made out of titanium for billions of dollars worth of aircraft. Buried them in the ground. At the same time, is when people at the base started coming down with radiation poisoning. And then this is when Ge0rge Knapp and your buddy Lazar, come out and start, claiming that UFOs are on the base. Meanwhile, contractors on the base are dying. Are you involved in covering up basically the nuclear program? And think about the deaths of these contractors. A lot of people work in Las Vegas and fly in on Janet, airlines. I think what's really going on is that the United States has these nuclear powered aircraft. When we decided to retire them, and when they were up in 1989, people on the base started dying.
Okay, so the question is, hold on. The question is, are you involved in covering up the fact that there were nuclear aircraft were nuclear powered, correct?
Well, the SR-71 and the U-2 certainly were not nuclear powered. They were powered by Pratt and Whitney engines, and I have no doubt that the U.S. government and the military have looked into having atomic powered aircraft and would like to have them. The fact is, I seriously doubt we had it back in the 1940s when that first caller and the last caller was referring to. As for carrying SR-71s out of Area 51, I seriously doubt it. I think most of those are accounted for, and most of them have gone to other air bases for display purposes. Some of them are still flying. And they weren't radioactive to begin with. That's for the question about the room late workers getting sick. Not only have I not covered it up, I'm the guy who first reported it. We KLAS-TV, and then my direction, all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court with those workers. We won minor victories in forcing the opening of a lot of those files. We walked hand in hand with them through every step of the way. And I think what happened was an absolute tragedy, but it's not because SR-71 were buried in the ground. It's because of all the component materials from stealth and all kinds of other stuff that they burned in open pits. And it covered the base day after day with giant piles of black smoke. We reported it has been picked up elsewhere. There is no cover-up.
All right. Ann in Texas, somewhere or another, you're on with George.
Dr. Mack, when he passed, taking over his work in different lines, like Colonel Corso and different lines, are you ready to maybe taking up the gauntlet?
That's a very good question. Who is going to be coming along will be the next Dr. Mack or Colonel Corso?
Well, there's no way Dr. Mack's stature in the field, I don't think, and especially in the area of abduction research. David Jacobs is a good man and a good researcher. I have a great deal of respect for Bud Hopkins. He doesn't have the academic credentials that these other folks do, but he's pioneered in that field. I don't know if those shoes of Dr. Mack can ever be filled, but there are some good people, in particular in abduction research, who are plugging away. As for Colonel Corso, I'm not sure. I mean, I think he might have been a one-of-a-kind guy. There are other people like him who are probably privy to secrets. I hope they come forward someday and can help us shed light on this mystery, but we're waiting.
All right. Stanley in New York, your turn with George then.
In terms of percentage-wise, and by the way, for people eventually coming out with stories, they will reach their inevitable death on deathbed, and they begin looking again deathbed confessions for people who have worked their nothing to lose anymore. And that's the next maybe what we'll really get great information was until then. What percentage possibility would you say that it is simply a matter of human beings having great creative minds and things happening optically to their eyes and minds to the connection, and that there is virtually nothing going on? In terms of percentage, is there a chance that absolutely nothing extraterrestrial is going on in the next imagination?
That's actually a pretty good question. Okay, George.
Well, I would say 90 to 95% is the term that most serious researchers would use to say how many can be explained in a way through prosaic means, clouds, planets, planes, weather balloons, whatever. In fact, when I went to Russia over there, back in the early 90s, the Russian files that I accessed, their military conducted a 10-year nationwide study, tens of thousands of cases. They reached the same sort of conclusion that 90 to 95%